I was 11 years old when my mom decided she needed a month in Europe more than I needed a parent. She said it casually, like she was talking about going to the grocery store. I was sitting at the small kitchen table, my math homework spread out in front of me, when she twirled her passport between her fingers and smiled. A bright, excited smile I hadn't seen in a long time. "It's just 4 weeks," she said. "You're old enough to handle yourself." I didn't know what "handle yourself" was supposed to mean at 11. I knew how to make cereal, I knew how to lock the door. I knew how to pretend I wasn't scared when the house made noises at night. But I also knew I still needed someone to remind me to eat dinner, to check my homework, to tell me everything would be okay. She packed loudly that night. Zippers screamed. Shoes thudded into the suitcase. She hummed while folding dresses I'd never seen her wear before. I stood in the doorway of her room, holding my pajama sleeves, waiting for her to notice me. "Who's going to make dinner?" I asked. She didn't look up. "There's food." "What kind of food? You'll figure it out." That was her answer to everything. The morning she left, she placed a crumpled $20 bill on the counter like it was a gift. It slid across the surface and stopped near my elbow. "That's for emergencies," she said, already reaching for her coat. "Is this enough?" I asked quietly. She sighed, annoyed, and finally met my eyes. "Don't be dramatic. I'll call every day." She hugged me with one arm, her attention already on her phone. Her perfume lingered after she walked out the door, something floral and expensive, something that didn't belong to me. The door closed, the lock clicked, and just like that I was alone. The first day felt like a strange adventure. I watched cartoons longer than usual. I ate cereal for lunch and dinner. I kept the lights on even when it was sunny, just because I could. When night came, the house felt bigger, too quiet. I slept with my bedroom door open so I could hear anything. She didn't call that night. On the second day, I used the microwave for the first time by myself. I burned the popcorn and cried because the smoke alarm went off and I didn't know how to stop it. I waved a towel under it until my arms hurt. I imagined the neighbors calling the police. I imagined my mom being mad at me from another country. Still no call. By the fourth day, the milk smelled sour. I didn't know if it was still safe, so I drank water instead. I packed my school lunch carefully, 2 slices of bread with nothing between them. I told my teacher I wasn't hungry when my stomach growled loud enough for the girl next to me to hear. At night, I checked my mom's voicemail over and over. Nothing. I left messages I later wished I hadn't. "Hi, Mom, I'm okay." "Hi, Mom, when are you calling?" "Hi, Mom, I'm kind of scared." I started counting the money in my pocket every morning like it might magically multiply. $20 became 15. 15 became 10. I bought the cheapest bread I could find and a pack of noodles I didn't know how to cook properly. I learned hunger had stages. First it hurt. Then it faded into something heavy and dull. The house began to feel angry with me. The refrigerator hummed too loudly. The shadows stretched too far. Every sound made my heart jump. I slept in my clothes in case something happened, and I had to leave fast, though I didn't know where I would go. At school, my teacher asked why I was tired all the time. I said I was staying up late reading. A counselor asked why I never had lunch anymore. I said I was saving money. Everyone seemed concerned, but I smiled, because smiling felt like protecting my mom. On the 7th night, the power flickered off for a few seconds before coming back on. I sat on the floor, hugging my knees, realizing something terrifying. She hadn't forgotten me, she had left me. And in that moment, with the house dark and silent around me, I understood something an 11-year-old shouldn't have to learn. Love doesn't disappear loudly. Sometimes it just doesn't come back. By the second week, time stopped feeling like days and started feeling like hunger. I learned quickly that money disappears faster when you're small and scared. The $20 my mom left behind had once felt like something solid, something I could rely on. Now it was just numbers I counted over and over, hoping they would change if I stared long enough. $10. 8:05. I folded the bills carefully, like neatness might make them last. I stopped turning on lights unless it was dark. I stopped opening the refrigerator because there was nothing new inside it, just empty shelves and the smell of something forgotten. I ate dry noodles straight from the package, crunching them slowly so my stomach wouldn't hurt as much afterward. Water became my dinner, sleep became my escape, school was harder. My legs felt heavy, like I was walking through mud. The bell for lunch felt cruel. Kids laughed and traded snacks while I pretended to be busy. Once, a boy offered me half his sandwich. I said no too quickly, my face burning. I didn't want anyone to know. I still checked my phone every night. Still nothing. When I tried calling my mom, it went straight to voicemail. I pictured her somewhere beautiful, bright buildings, smiling people, plates full of food. I imagined her phone buzzing in her bag while she laughed with strangers. I wondered if she listened to my messages later. I wondered if she felt anything at all. The electricity shut off for real on the 12th day. It wasn't dramatic. There was no explosion or warning. The lights just went dark, and the refrigerator went quiet. I stood in the middle of the living room, heart pounding, afraid to move. When I flipped the switch and nothing happened, I sat down on the floor and cried until my throat hurt. That night, I wrapped myself in every blanket I owned. The house felt colder without the soft hum of power. Every creak sounded like footsteps. I slept in short bursts, waking up at every noise, counting hours until morning. The next day at school, my teacher noticed the dark circles under my eyes. She asked if everything was okay at home. I nodded. Lying had become easier than telling the truth. The truth felt too big, too dangerous. I thought if I said it out loud, everything would collapse, and somehow that would be my fault. A counselor pulled me aside later that week. She asked gentle questions. Did I eat breakfast? Was anyone home with me at night? I answered carefully, choosing words that sounded normal. She frowned but let me go. I felt proud and sick at the same time. I didn't understand that adults weren't supposed to let children live like this. On the 15th day, I got sick. My stomach cramped so badly I curled up on the bathroom floor. I drank water from the sink and pressed my face against the cold tiles, wishing someone would come home. I whispered for my mom without realizing it, like saying her name might summon her. She didn't come. A neighbor knocked once that week. I froze, heart racing, afraid they'd ask questions. I waited until they left. I didn't know what would happen if anyone found out. I imagined police cars, angry voices, my mom yelling at me for ruining everything. The $20 was gone by the third week. So was my sense of time. Days blurred together. I stopped counting how long she'd been gone because the number scared me. I stopped expecting phone calls. I stopped hoping. It hurt less that way. At school, I fell asleep in class. When my teacher gently woke me, her face looked worried. That worried look followed me down the hall. It followed me into the counselor's office when she called me in again. This time, she didn't ask if I was okay. She asked who was taking care of me. I opened my mouth to lie, but nothing came out. Because somewhere between empty cupboards and silent nights, I had learned the truth. I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't being difficult. I was being abandoned. And for the first time, I wondered what would happen if I stopped protecting the person who never protected me. The office smelled like paper and lemon cleaner. I sat in a chair that was too big for me, my feet not quite touching the floor, swinging slowly back and forth. My hands were folded in my lap, fingers twisting together until they hurt. Across from me, the counselor watched me carefully, like she was afraid I might disappear if she blinked. "Can you tell me who stays with you at night?" she asked softly. I stared at the clock on the wall. The second hand moved in small, steady clicks. I counted them instead of answering. 1, 2, 3. "No one," I finally whispered. She didn't look shocked. That scared me more than if she had. She nodded slowly, like she'd already known the answer, and was just waiting for me to catch up. That afternoon, 2 strangers came to the school. They introduced themselves, spoke kindly, and asked me questions that made my chest feel tight. How long had my mom been gone? Did I have food? Did I feel safe at home? I told them the truth because I was too tired to lie anymore. When we pulled up in front of my house, one of them frowned before we even went inside. The grass was overgrown. The mailbox overflowed with unopened letters. The door stuck when they pushed it open, like it hadn't been used properly in weeks. Inside, the air was stale and cold. The refrigerator opened to empty shelves and a faint smell of rot. The cupboards echoed when they were opened. One of the strangers wrote things down on a clipboard, her pen moving faster with every room we checked. "This isn't okay," she said quietly, not to me, but about me. They found the unpaid bills stacked on the counter, the disconnected power notice, the voicemail inbox on my phone, filled with messages I had left but none I had received. They asked me where the $20 was. I told them I'd spent it on food. No one scolded me. That surprised me. Instead, they asked me to pack a bag. Just the essentials, they said. Clothes, toothbrush, anything important. I stood in my room, staring at my few belongings, unsure what counted as important when everything felt temporary. I packed my favorite sweater even though it was too small. I packed a book I'd read 100 times. I left most things behind. When we walked out, I didn't lock the door. For the first time in weeks, I ate a full meal that night. Warm food, seconds even. I didn't know where to look while I ate, embarrassed by how fast I was chewing. My stomach hurt afterward, not from hunger, but from finally being full. I slept in a clean bed under soft blankets. I woke up once in the middle of the night, panicked, expecting the dark silence of my house. Instead, there was a nightlight glowing softly in the corner. I cried quietly into the pillow so no one would hear. 2 days later, my mom called. Her voice was sharp, angry, and loud. She didn't ask if I was okay. She asked what I'd told them. She asked why people were making a big deal. She said I'd embarrassed her. She said she was coming home early not because she missed me, but because this mess needed to be handled. When she arrived, she looked exactly the same, perfect hair, expensive coat, a face full of irritation instead of concern. She hugged me in front of the workers, her nails digging into my shoulder, whispering through clenched teeth, "Why would you do this to me?" For the first time, I didn't apologize. They showed her the photos, the empty fridge, the bills, the dates. They told her how long I'd been alone. They told her what that meant. Her mouth opened and closed, searching for excuses, vacation plans, misunderstandings. Overreactions, none of it worked. They asked me if I wanted to say anything. My voice shook, but I spoke anyway. I told them about the nights I went to bed hungry, about the power shutting off, about the messages I left that were never returned. I told them how scared I'd been, and how I'd still tried to protect her. My mom stared at me like she didn't recognize who I was anymore. Maybe she didn't, because the child who stood there wasn't the one she'd left behind. That child had learned something powerful in her absence. When the truth is finally spoken, silence loses its grip. And once that happens, nothing stays hidden for long. The word revenge never sounded right to me. It made people think of shouting, slammed doors, and dramatic endings. But what came after my mom's return wasn't loud at all. It was slow, quiet, unavoidable, and in the end that made it sweeter than anything anger could have given me. The adults called it a process, meetings, reports, rules. I called it something simpler, consequences. My mom stopped being in charge of everything. She had to explain herself to people who didn't care about her excuses or her charm. She had to attend meetings she didn't want to go to, answer questions she couldn't talk her way out of, and listen while strangers described her choices in words that sounded official and permanent. Neglect, abandonment, endangerment, words she'd never used for me before. I didn't go back to the house right away. I stayed somewhere warm and steady, where meals happened at the same time every day, and lights always turned on when you flipped the switch. At first, I felt guilty for liking it. I thought liking it meant I didn't love my mom anymore, but I was wrong. It just meant I was finally safe. At school, things changed. Teachers smiled at me in a different way, not worried, but proud. My grades improved once I could think about more than hunger. I laughed sometimes without checking myself. I slept through the night. Those small changes added up to something huge. They added up to a future. My mom tried to regain control in little ways. She sent messages telling me how much she'd sacrificed. She cried in meetings. She said people were judging her unfairly. When that didn't work, she went quiet. Cold, distant, like love was something she could turn off and on when it suited her. I stopped chasing it. The final meeting came on a gray afternoon. I sat in a chair that finally felt like it fit me. They asked me where I wanted to live, what I needed, what I felt. They asked me questions I'd never been allowed to answer before. I answered honestly, and that was it. No shouting, no dramatic showdown, just decisions written down, signed, and enforced. My mom looked smaller walking out of that room, like the world had shifted and she hadn't noticed until it was too late. Years passed. I grew into myself in ways she never expected. I learned how to cook real meals. I learned how to ask for help. I learned that love doesn't hurt or disappear without warning. I learned that being cared for isn't something you have to earn. The revenge wasn't that she suffered. The revenge was that I didn't. When I graduated, she wasn't in the front row. She sent a message instead. Short, awkward, filled with words that felt borrowed. I'm proud of you. I read it once and didn't reply. Not out of anger, out of peace, because the truth was, I didn't need her regret. I didn't need an apology wrapped in excuses. I had built a life so full that her absence no longer defined it. Sometimes I think about that 11-year-old kid sitting in the dark, counting money and hoping for a phone call that never came. I wish I could go back and tell them what I know now, that being left wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning. She went to Europe looking for freedom. I stayed behind and found something better. I found safety. I found my voice. I found a life where survival turned into strength. And that quiet, steady, unbreakable was the sweetest revenge of all.